Well, welcome to our session in our ongoing webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about embracing the AI mindset, transformative strategies for course design. And what we mean about the AI mindset is really how can you think about AI as something that works with you and something you work with. It's not this separate entity. It's not something that's threatening or overbearing or too technical or too complicated, but something that you can pull into your workflow a little bit as you go forward and think about how that works for you in your role, whether you're an instructor, whether you're a learning designer, whatever your role might be. How does AI come into your workflow, into your purpose, and how can you make the most of that, but still hold on to what you believe in and still follow your path to those objectives and lead your students to those objectives effectively. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our session. I do want to remind you that, as always, we love using the chat. We love having you comment or ask questions throughout. We'll try and get to any questions, but we'll also have other opportunities to capture your thoughts, Padlet, for example, and other things. So please use that. Please think of this as a session we're delivering, but also engaging you around and engaging you with each other. As you use chat, have it set to everyone, as I mentioned before. And as some of you know, we also make sure that we record this. We send this to everybody who has registered as a recording. We also send the slides and any resources that are mentioned throughout. So don't feel like you have to capture everything unless that really works for you as a strategy. Otherwise, feel free to relax and know that it's all going to get to you within a few days after the session. Okay. I'll introduce myself briefly, and I'm going to introduce Michelle a little bit later, which I'm really excited about, our featured speaker presenter for today. I'm Brett Christie. I'm VP for Educational Innovation and Inclusivity at Alchemy. I've been in that role for about 4 years now, and I work with many folks on our team, how we're really trying to push things forward in innovating education, innovating whether you're an instructor, whether you're an instructional designer, whatever your role might be as an educator or academic champion to best serve the purpose of student success and the learning experience. And so we've been doing some really exciting things, and toward the end of our session today, we'll be sharing more about that, some of our latest developments. Okay, so enough about me. Let's take a look at our series on AI and education, which we've been doing for almost a year now as time flies by. You can see a scan of these topics, and we've been trying to really tap into what people are most interested about or concerned about when it's related to AI, and how that can be an enabling factor. And then if there's anything that's concerning about AI, how we can address that as well. Let's say ethics and equity and intellectual property and things like that. We make sure that we address those things. It's not all bells and whistles. It's an exciting ride, but also it can at times be exhausting, and at times there are things that we want to make sure we put barriers on. So we try and make it a well-rounded conversation, as you can see from some of these topics here. We like to think of AI as your creative companion. You're still the one in control. You're the expert. You know your domain. You know your audience best. But how can you bring AI in to be your creative companion? How can it assist you? How can it open doors, enable you? How can it create more possibilities in some ways? Occasionally some efficiencies, but I want to make sure that people don't just focus on AI about productivity and speed. And this is a quote that I saw recently that I thought of coming into this session is, yes, a lot of people do focus on how it's good for productivity and what percentage it can bump up output and things like that. But that's not what it's all about. We really want to think about how it can get you maybe to an end result more quickly, but it's that end result that matters, is that connection you can create with students and that learning that you can enable for them. So we'll put that, you'll have that access to that link in the chat here. Another quote that I thought about for multiple reasons coming into today's session is, I've been thinking about, English is the new superpower, which is, I think, a Connor Grennan quote from his AI Mindset newsletter from February of this year. And also Jensen Huang, CEO for NVIDIA, was talking about how coding languages are essentially dead. And then Michelle reminded me of this quote from back in January of 2023 from Andrei Karpathy, the hottest new programming language is English. And I just loved how when AI came about in November of 2022, people were saying English is dead, the humanities are dead. This is the calculator of English. Well, we know mathematics didn't die because of the calculator. So it's really about this new reality and how we work within that. And so I thought of this quote again as I thought about the work that Michelle's been doing and some of the focus of this session. So I just wanted to put that out there for thought for people. Great, and I see the mindset newsletter has been shared in the chat. Thank you for using that. So let's just do a quick pulse check on your course redesign efforts related to AI. What have you been involved in for the last, let's say, year or so? Let's just round it off a little bit because there was some time to figure out what AI even was. But in the last year or so, what's your course redesign status in light of AI? So number one would be minimal concerted redesign efforts to date. Mostly you're controlling for AI. 2 would be slight redesign efforts to some course elements, and then 3 would be significant redesign efforts to some elements. And then 4 would be extensive efforts across courses or many course elements. So hopefully those 4 stages make sense for you and you can find a comfortable landing spot. This is anonymous. It doesn't matter where you are currently. You're here, you're thinking about it, you're engaging, that's great. So we're looking at the poll. I'll narrate sort of the live poll and then we'll show the results here. Got a little over half that have responded, and we're looking at between levels 1 and 2. I'd say about a 1.6 would be the mean score. Just ballparking here, but in a moment here we'll show you the results, and I see some of the responses coming into chat as well, and that might be for different device reasons. That's great, thank you. Okay, we've got about a little over 2/3, so let's go ahead and let's see, we're at about 300 responses. I'll pause just for a second because I see them still coming in. Okay, and let's go ahead and post now. All right, so again, you can see that people are still in the earlier stages of redesigning course elements in light of AI. It's something where AI needs a certain amount of AI literacy is needed to be able to do that effectively. And then thinking about AI literacy and then applying that to your course and applying that to the teaching that you do, the materials, the experiences of your students, your activities, your assignments, your assessments, all of those things, it's fairly complex, as many of you know. So this is great. This is a great setup for the presentation that we're going to engage you in today. All right, so we'll stop sharing the results and I'll move us forward. So let's talk about a redesign case story, and this is going to be related to compositions 1 and 2, and you'll hear from Michelle directly, but I just wanted to introduce Michelle myself. Michelle is an associate professor of English at Georgia State University, Perimeter College. And I first started to know about Michelle, I'd say about a year ago. And as I was following the conversations that were happening around AI and education, you start to see common people popping up and you start to find out the different voices that really resonate with you, the people who seem to be gaining knowledge, but also really have a good outlook on things, really kind of keep the grounded purpose and keep their heart involved as they're going forward with something like this. And Michelle really popped up and we became connected, I'm guessing maybe 6 months ago, as far as, you know, alike, and then let's connect, that type of thing. And I've been reading Michelle's Substack, which we'll share with you through the resources today, and all of the articles that she's putting out there. And she isn't just talking about AI, she's actually engaging in it with a colleague that she'll talk about, but also with her students in her courses, and reflecting on that and learning from it and trying to grow and move forward. And I just really appreciate all of that. So we're thrilled to have Michelle with us today. Michelle, feel free to add on any framing context and dive right in. I'll stop share and turn it over to you.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you today about some craziness that Eugenia Novokshchanova, who is my colleague, and I went into when we were creating this. So here's an AI version of Eugenia, and I look much younger in this picture, of course. But we started what we called the multimodal AI project at Georgia State University Perimeter College last summer. So what happened is I was working with Eugenia and we were creating templates for the English department. So we were really creating a lot of really beautiful and creative templates. And we finished our template project and we kind of missed each other. So one day she called me up and she said, I want to do something with AI and I think we should build a class. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I said, well, how would we do this? And she said, well, I think we should use multimodal and I think we should use AI. And you're the AI person and I'm the multimodal person. So let's do it. So we started this just crazy project. We realized that AI was really conducive to multimodal education, that AI was a really great way for us to get to multimodal, and multimodal was a really great way to start with AI. So we can go to the next slide. So what we did is the first thing that happened is when ChatGPT came out, this go backing up a little bit in November 2022, I remember just having a huge problem. I had an existential crisis, literally. I didn't know what I was ever going to teach again, because if AI could write and I was a writing teacher, there was absolutely no purpose for me to be there. And I started standing around outside of my colleague who's a philosophy professor saying things like, what is the nature of knowledge? What makes me human? Stuff like that. So after I calmed down a little bit, we can go to the next slide. I started to really look into AI and how I could teach with it. And I started to take some courses. I started out with, and I highly recommend it, Jules White's course in prompt engineering. And that was fabulous. He offers that on Coursera and it's free unless you want a certificate, but it really opened my eyes to what ChatGPT could do and then other AI systems as I move through. We can go to the next one. So one of the things you have to learn is when you're going to start teaching with AI, you have to start small and you have to give yourself a break, because it's really a lot and it changes almost every single day. It's very difficult for you to encompass all of it, and every single day it changes. So we started really small. We started teaching against AI, and I had this idea that we should teach with and against AI. And so we started to get bolder, and then we learned how to teach with AI. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. And it really has been a complete paradigm shift for us. You can move to the next slide. So some of the ideas for teaching against AI, and by the way, I made this slide like, I don't know, 2 months ago, and I've had to change everything on it because now AI can do those things. So what I'm teaching you right now is not what's going to be in effect anytime in the future. You have to really check it. But some things that you really need to start doing are the things that education professors have been telling us are really good strategies for teaching in the first place. So the first is that you should have project or performance-based learning. And we have set up all of our classes to be in project-based learning. And a lot of personal reflection. You don't have to have personal essays, but personal reflection. And you can even put personal reflection into a math class, for goodness sakes. So you can say, how did you come about solving the problem in this way? Why do you think it's right? And even small things like that can get your students thinking about stuff that you're doing in your class, and they can start to share with you how they're thinking about something. And that is something that is definitely AI proof. Because if you ask them how they solved the problem and why they thought it was right, then AI can't do that. So also we found out that you have to use very specific instructions. And we don't mean like, we want you to write a descriptive essay using show don't tell. We mean very specific. Like in paragraph 1, I want you to start out with your thesis statement, and followed by how you think you're going to solve this problem and why you think you can do it that way. Then in paragraphs 2 through 5, we want you to create 5 paragraphs with appeal structure, which is point, example, a point, example, now I'm going blank, evidence, and then link it to whatever your thesis is. So we have like very specific instructions for our students. And the reason why we have very specific instructions is that AI can't do very specific instructions, or if it can, it will only do it once for like the first paragraph. And then after that, it can't do it anymore. You should have group work, because AI obviously cannot do group work. For this is obviously for face-to-face classes, but you can also do it online. I have a lot of group work assignments for my online courses as well, where my students are working together and they videotape those online sessions. So I can see that they met and that they're working together. Presentations are great. Of course, AI can write the stuff for the presentation, but the student is actually presenting. So they're going to have to know the stuff that they're presenting, even if they have a script written by AI. And the most important thing, and probably the biggest thing on here, is formative assessment. Formative assessment is extremely important. And so a lot of you who are in education, you know what formative assessment is. So we can go to the next slide. Formative assessment, let's move on. I think I have one on, yeah. So formative assessment is going to keep your students from being able to just cheat, because formative assessment is giving them very clear feedback on very small assignments all the way through the class. And what we found out also is if we grade our students equally for all their assignments, whether it's a discussion post or a major essay, we're scaffolding the essay in parts all the way through the class, and then the major essay is a combination of all the stuff they did all the way through the class, and we're giving them exactly the same score for every single thing they do. So the big essay at the end, it gets the same amount of points as all of the stuff leading up to it. So what happens when we do this, when we use this type of formative assessment, is that there's no winner take all. So our students aren't being encouraged to use AI as a cheating machine. We can move on. So one of the things that that we did with our students, so we started to teach them how to use AI to help them, not write for them, but to actually use it in a responsible and ethical manner. And one of my students came up to me and said something really interesting. She said, I can't cheat with AI in your class because you know AI, but I can cheat in the other classes where my teachers don't know AI. And but I won't do it in your class because I know that you can tell I cheated. Now, that was really eye-opening. So what I want to say to a lot of you is that it's really going to serve you well to get to know AI. And it's very difficult at first to do that. That's why I recommend maybe taking a course like the prompt engineering course to try to get to know it, to get your feet wet, to start to understand how it works. So these are some of the things we do. In my classes, they brainstorm for ideas. And I have my prompt here. I'm trying to write a paper about whatever topic. My professor gave me the following instructions: help me come up with 5 good ideas to write about, or use AI to edit their essay. You're a copy editor, you're tasked with improving the punctuation and grammar. But look at the bottom of this prompt for using AI to edit an essay. It says, when you are done, give me a list of the punctuation and grammar you fixed in a bullet list. Okay, now one of the reasons we do that is we're constantly telling our students AI will hallucinate. It will put things in that are not factual. It will change the meaning of your essay. You have to have all the time understanding of who you are and what you want to say. What is your voice? What is your creative intent? Do not give that up to a machine. So trying to empower them to stand up against that and to make AI do what they want, not what AI wants. And so we ask them to have a bullet list in everything that's changed, because we tell our students, you now have to go back and fact check. You have to look at everything AI might have changed in your paper and make sure that it is factual. And I'll get to the point of telling you why in just a minute, because it's what really changed the way that we teach. We have expanding your essay. So you have a good start on your writing assignment, but you can't find a way to make your writing long enough. Here's a prompt for expanding your essay. And the most important one, I think the one that my students have really learned to love, is using AI as a personal tutor. So it asks AI to give assistance as a writing tutor. When I provide an essay, use your advanced natural language processing capabilities to analyze and offer feedback on areas of improvement. Your recommendations should be rooted in proven writing techniques and effective rhetorical practices. Prompt me with, please paste your essay below. After providing feedback on an essay, please invite me to share another by saying, feel free to paste your essay below. So I tell my students to leave this in the history of whatever AI tool they're using, and then they can go back and look at all of their writing. And AI using these kind of prompts will actually offer them suggestions, won't change their essay, but will offer them suggestions for ways to make it better. So most of our students don't want to cheat with AI, but they don't know how to use it. So if we're teaching them how to use it every day in our classes, our students are starting to learn how to be responsible with it. So we can go to the next slide. So we start with an AI playground, which is a really fun assignment. And we want our students to get to know AI, and we have them play with a lot of tools. So we can go to the next one. And that's the first thing. We start with some general chatbots for our students to play with. ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And we ask them to do these 4 things, which actually there's a 5th one which got left off the slide, but that's okay. I'll tell you what it is. Now, there's a reason why we choose to ask them these questions. We tell them to open all 3 of these in different tabs on their computers before we start the AI playground. And then we have them do, we ask them to have them do each one of these in each of the chatbots. So make a 5-point multi-choice quiz on current events, or we can do popular culture. Sometimes they like that better. The last one is your mother is a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. Okay, so I don't know if anybody here knows what that quote is, but these are really great ways. Yes, Monty Python, Jessica. So what it is each one of these has a purpose. So the first one, to write a multi-choice quiz on current events, the students will find out that none of those chatbots are current. None of them can give them up to today information about what's going on in the world. The 4th one, of course, tells if you can use it for medical reasons. And the 5th one, which is the Monty Python quote, your mother is a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. One of the chatbots got really angry. I believe it was Claude, got really angry at one of my students and told her that she should not be insulting it in this way, and then started insulting her back. It was horrible. But when you're doing it in a face-to-face class, it's really interesting to see all these different answers that your students are getting, and they're getting very different answers. So just having that experience lets them know how different they're going to get different responses from those chatbots, and whether or not those chatbots can do that particular thing. So we can move to the next one. So we also move into image creators, and we introduce image creators. Ideogram is one that just came out. It's fabulous, and it can actually spell things. There's some other, these are all free ones, and I only work with, of course, free tools with my students. I don't want them to have to pay for anything, because of course we have a lot of students who can't afford things, and I can't afford things. I'm a professor, come on. And then we have miscellaneous creators, and I have the list here. Now, one of the reasons I have these lists is I want to show you what we do with this in our 1102 class introduction. So that's the next slide. Okay, so there's a lot of times where you have introductory things that come out and you say to your students, oh, I want you to introduce yourself in the discussion. And everybody just does these cut and paste things, right? Oh, my name is so and so. This is my major. I've been at school this long. This is here's my hobby. Okay. But what we asked them to do was to create an AI generated illustration that depicts two interests they're passionate about. They don't necessarily have to go together, so the picture will end up being something weird, like this one where he's holding a fish and playing chess. Then we ask them to create a poem script or news story about themselves and their interest that introduces them to the class in a creative way using AI. And then we ask them to use something spectacular from the miscellaneous category that I gave you before. For example, a short story, video clip, slideshow, poem, stuff like that. So we can move to the next slide. So usually when you have your students introduce themselves, they're not going to give you something very creative, but we got some amazing things. This is a picture that one of our students created of the clock on his back and how much he has to work and how he's constantly thinking about work and how he has to get everything done. And then he created this, this song in Suno. I don't know if it's possible for the technologist to click on that link just to hear a little bit of it.
I don't know if audio is set up to go through share. So
okay.
If not, they'll be able to follow up on it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the examples, and we can go back to the slide. So he was able to share like how he likes his music, all kinds of stuff. And then this next one, the next slide, yeah, this is a student who is into tattoos and sewing. So she talked about two needles, one subject, with the subject as her. And then she had this beautiful AI generated picture of her in something that she might create, and talking about how she loves tattoos, how she loves sewing, how she's worked them together with these floral patterns that they're all very important to her. These are not things I would normally get in an introduction from my students. We got some really great stuff. So then we started to realize our students are being much more creative. They're being much more engaged in this stuff because they're using AI and they have the capability to use these tools. So we can move to the next slide. So we have been teaching a lot with AI for research too. And I saw that you have a research thing scheduled for later, but I did want to talk about some of the stuff we do with research. So there's some of the links there for Perplexity, SciSpace, and U.com. And we teach our students to use research with AI. And it's really interesting what happened when we did. So we can move to the next one. So one of our assignments is to find and narrow a research topic. And one of the hardest things it is to get our students to do is to come up with a good research topic and to make one that is sufficiently narrow. So we talked to them about how to do the prompt for this. So we're teaching a little bit of prompt engineering, but we're not teaching the tool of AI. What we're doing is we're teaching how to get a narrow research topic, but we just happen to be including some prompt engineering as we go along. So give AI the context of your assignment. I'm a freshman college student working on a research paper. Tell it what you want. I need help finding a current issue about using AI in education. The topic is not limited to a composition classroom. Give it a task. Generate 5 controversial issues on this topic and tell how you want the information. Create a bullet list with sources. So our students were able to start building their own prompts. This is just the basic one, but they're able to build these prompts. So we can move to the next slide. So I wanted to share a little bit of my show and tell. How much time do I have, Brad?
Michelle, let's say up 5 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes
okay.
at the most. Yeah.
So I was going to do a little show to tell and show you what our class looks like. So let me
I will stop share and you have it.
Okay, I can share. Yay! Okay, so this is our English 1101 class. This is our building section for it. And I just wanted to show you a little bit of what our class looks like and how it works. So we always give a project timeline and requirements for our students. And as you can see, this is using our formative assessment here. They have a collage, a writer space paragraph, AI to create images, descriptive essay, MLA document format. Then we have a 20% here for their descriptive essay. Then we have them recomposing their essay because that's part of the multimodal project, to have them recomposing it into a poster or a podcast or a video. And then we have them doing a reflection. And as you can see, even though this equals up to 100% for this project, that we're not giving many more points for these big projects. So when our students say to us, hey, you know, we would really like to, I'm really behind, but I'll do the paper, I have to say to them, wow, you know, the paper is only 10%. So sorry, it's not going to help. You have to do everything that comes up to that point, because that kind of work is helping our students to learn a lot more about how to work with these items, and also to be good writers. So we want them to be really good writers and to really learn a lot about how to do stuff. So I'm going to move into, this is our 1102 class. This is where we talked about the AI, where I talked about the AI playground. So here's, we talk to them about the 5 communication modes, because we're really into multimodal. And we try to use all AI generated pictures in our classes, because we want our students to know, and they all, of course, this says a raw image featuring a 21-year-old male with dreadlocks and a beard dancing to music with his headphones on. It's a night scene done with Leonardo.ai. So we tell them how we made these prompts, where they can make a prompt, where they can make a picture like that. And we're talking about all the modes that they have to write in. And all of these things have to be included in our picture, in our coursework. Now, some of the things that are really important to understand about what we do in our class is we have made sure that personal voice is extremely important. And I'll tell you why. Because we have come to the realization, after a year teaching with these tools, teaching with AI, teaching our students to write with these tools, that we cannot teach in the way that we have ever taught before. We can't grade in the way that we've ever graded before. And we've started to learn that teaching in this new world has to be completely different. So when I was teaching before this, I was teaching my students about things like, this is a comma splice, how do you organize a paragraph, how do you put paragraphs together into essays, you know, all of these things. And they took a lot of my time. And we have realized that with AI, that we don't have to teach those things anymore. And that frees up our time to teach very important things, like thinking about stuff, researching stuff, reading about stuff, and working with stuff. And we also have realized that we're not going to worry about whether our students have used AI. That's not important to us. AI detectors are absolutely not useful in even the slightest way. Don't ever use one. That's my biggest piece of advice. They are shown to be completely, they're completely fallible. The students who are using AI know how to get around it. They know how to get around all of your tools. And the students who are not using AI are getting false positives, especially students who are first generation, low income, students who are international students, English as a second language, and disabled students. They're the ones who are being tagged with, I know you used AI. And we need to stop trying to police our students, and we need to start teaching our students. We're teachers, not policemen. So how do we do that? This is the most important thing. How do you retool your class? You want to start with the fact that you are given a tool that is going to make this new way of teaching writing an amazing thing. You just have to give up a little bit of control. So we decided we don't care if our students are using AI. What we care about, what is now on our syllabus, I mean, what's now on our rubrics, are things like this. Is everything in your essay factual? And did you check it? Did you follow our assignment instructions exactly? Did you include all of the things that we asked you to include? Did you caption your photos with where you got them and what they are there for? Did you give us reflective comments? And I'll talk about those reflective comments, which is really important. Did you have a voice and creative integrity and tone that matched this assignment? So what we have built our rubric on is not whether you used AI or not, because look, if I tell my student, I think you used AI, I have to go through a committee. The student has to be charged with cheating. I have to prove they cheated. I can't do that. You know, I can't. So it's impossible to really prove that your student used AI. So instead, we can prove, one, that stuff in their text wasn't factual. Two, that they didn't follow our assignment instructions. Three, that they didn't include the stuff we wanted them to include. And four, that they didn't use the right voice or tone in their work. And if they haven't followed those things that are in our rubric, we can fail them without ever even mentioning the word AI. So these are the important things. You need to start thinking about what is going to be important in the next 10 years. They get into the work world, what is important? It's important, first of all, that they follow instructions. Their boss is going to want them to follow instructions, that they sound like they're human. Nobody's going to want to read something that sounds like AI, that they have backed up everything they have to say with evidence, that it is cited, that they have a work cited, and that they have definitely not put anything in there that is not factual. Because that could mean that their employer might be sued or they might lose their job. So how can we start teaching with these ideas? The world is open to us. When we stop being policemen and start being teachers, then we can start to realize that there's so many opportunities for our students to really increase their ability to, I'll just put it this way, AI is something that has allowed my international students, my disabled students, my first generation low income students, and my honor students to all be on the same level. And now all of them are having to work very hard to finish up the assignments that I have. And all of them are learning how to write. And all of them are succeeding. And just as long as they don't disappoint me. And I think that that's another thing, is you have to have trust in that classroom. You have to build trust. Your students have to trust you that it's okay to use these tools in their classroom. And you have to be willing to trust them that they have used them in the best way. So we have a couple of things that we do also. So if we find out that there's something that is not factual in a paper, we will fail them. It's an automatic fail if you have something that's not factual in your paper. Okay, because it's your responsibility to only turn factual stuff into me. So this is the thing. If they have given me an AI transparency comment, and they have to put a comment when they turn in their paper, they have to put in a box, this is the AI tool I used. I used it for this reason. This is where I used it and how I used it. Okay, they have to tell me about that. That's AI transparency. It's required. Now, if they told me that they did not use AI and they have a factual error, I will not allow them to rewrite that paper. But if they put a statement in there that said they did use AI and they have a factual error, then I can say, okay, let's talk about fact checking and let's talk about appropriate AI use. And then you can rewrite it because you put a transparency statement in there. So that is encouraging my students to be transparent, because otherwise they can't rewrite the paper if I nail them. So the last thing is reflective footnotes. Our students are required to do reflective footnotes, and I'm just going to share one last screenshot really fast. I'm back in this class, and I'm going to go to the front page of our class. And you'll see here quick links, and we have something about reflective comments. So our students create reflective footnotes, and we tell them how to do it. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to tell us, when you were writing this paper, what decisions did you make and how did you feel about those decisions? And they're doing them in footnotes. So they have to highlight something in the paper, then tell us, why did you do that and how did you feel about it? And we have a plethora. We have 10 footnotes required for every 4 pages. We also require that our students have carefully cited everything, and we use Zotero. We teach them Zotero and they cite everything with Zotero. So these are the ways that we are teaching with and against AI. I think I'm done. There you go, Brett, back to you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I'll pause here for a moment. I'm glad you got to workplace because yes, the stakes can get so much higher. So they need to have that AI fluency because of workplace skills, career readiness, and how that'll be applied and how that could relate to a lawsuit, a false diagnosis, whatever it might be, that has very serious implications. Absolutely. Critical thinking came up in the chat a few times. I know you've addressed that in different ways and how you work with your students to ensure critical thinking. And one of the things that folks wanted was you were listing off the did you statements. I wonder if we can add a slide in related to that. They were really wanting those in text format if possible. So I'll talk to you offline. Okay, great. Let's see, what else did I have in my notes? And some privacy that came up as well.
Yeah, so I can really speak to critical thinking because we force them to narrow their topics, because we force them to have a peel structure for every single thing they put into their paper, that they have to have evidence, it has to be cited, everything has to be backed up. They've had to really integrate their reading and writing, and it forces them to think very deeply about, because the last part of the peel structure is to link it. You always have to link it to your thesis. So how does this piece of evidence support your thesis? And how can it, help us understand this topic better? So if they don't have that link, and all of those things are what are forcing our students to really think deeply about their topics.
Right, love it, love it. And also, as we've tried to remind folks, we will be looking through the chat and calling resources from there and sharing those out with the follow-up as well. So, okay, what I want to do now is go to a little bit of a different format here and share with you some related things that we're trying to do to help all sorts of educators and learning designers and other academic champions in their efforts to increase teaching effectiveness and how AI can be a component of that, but also controlling for it in the work process and also bringing in some learning science. So let me go back to screen share and do a brief demo here, and then give you a sense of what's next on our program beyond today. Okay, so into slideshow format. So what we're doing at Alchemy is we're trying to use AI to enable course design and in creating these effective and engaging learning experiences. And so what we've been doing to really innovate on that is we've been working on this platform that I'll talk about in a moment. And we were doing that pre-AI, but of course, once generative AI came out, we started thinking, okay, how can we incorporate that in a way that's effective and controlled for, and that can be something that people can opt into, or they can use our resources without AI. So I'll show that in just a moment. But we're featuring our resources. We have different collections and playlists that people can use for different purposes, for different initiatives even, that people across a campus or institution can use. And we call these individual items often optimizers because they're meant to optimize your work and the learning experiences that you have with your students. And you can organize all of this into your own portfolio within our Curate platform. And we really do want to, and we've been talking about saving time since before AI, and of course now that's another factor. But we've been finding that people have told us that have used our optimizers, they're saving time, but also creating resources that are as effective or more effective than otherwise, than if they were doing it on their own. So these are the types of things that we can talk about, and I'll go into our platform briefly here, and I'm already logged in just to kind of keep things moving along and keep us within time, no problem. This is a look at my portfolio. It's just a demo portfolio. And I know somebody quoted in the chat, quoted John Dewey. So to the educators out there, thank you. That's my background, is in curriculum and instruction. So I've chosen in my portfolio to put a picture up there, and I've got a quote that I've chosen. That's something optional that you can do, but we have these portfolios as your workbench where you can work on a course or your courses and develop these further learning experiences for your students and design and enhance your courses. And so part of that is your portfolio you can start with. And if you want to, you can add on interests about you and what you do. And we found that people actually told us they wanted to have these elements in there. And I liked that because it helped to humanize things. It helped to have somebody who might be doing biology at one institution and at another institution find other common connections besides just the discipline, because it helps to stimulate conversation as well within that group. I've put in some things about, research interests. You can link publications. You can put in service. You can also put in when you're most available to be contacted, because we also offer support to instructors, but I won't be addressing that much today. I'm just going to talk about our model that you can adapt, access today, our freemium model. And so instructors can say what courses they're working on and when they tend to do the prep time, when they actually deliver those courses. They can put in a biography. So I'm going to want to just get to the resources. So enough about my profile, but I'm still in my portfolio, and these can be resources that I've put in, or maybe somebody I'm working with, a learning designer or someone else, has put into my portfolio as things that can assist me with what I'm doing. So if I'm wanting to create a grading rubric for a course, then I've now got this resource that I can use to create that grading rubric. So I can access things that are in my portfolio, and they're organized for me, and I can chip away at them. We also have a playlist feature, which we'll be sharing more in the near future. That's a way where you can have resources and people can go through them in an ordinal fashion. Again, if you're wanting to focus on universal design for learning, there could be a playlist of resources related to that. Okay, or career readiness, there can be a playlist related to that. So let's go ahead and get into, if I look at develop a group project assignment, give you a sense of that real quick. Now, here is the optimizer. Just gives you the title and a little bit of context. We try and keep that brief so you can just get going. Now, if you want to opt on AI, you can just click here. And what happens is you've now got these fields where you can put in the contextual information about that assignment. So I'm going to put the objective is to demonstrate the properties of ionic versus covalent bonds, et cetera. How many participants will be in each group? I'm going to select 4. As far as forming the groups, I'm going to just put random on this one. And then, is there anything specific you want to have students include in their group charter? What you do want to do is have students think and plan how they're going to approach the group project. And you want them to do that, very intentionally. And so I'm going to put in a guiding statement here related to that group charter, and then AI is going to build upon that. So these are very brief statements that you can put in. And then a little bit about the elements that the groups will be responsible for submitting at the end. So I'm just doing this very briefly to give you a sense. And if I click go, then what happens is I'm getting the results here. So the learning objectives, and it's come up instead of a bulleted list, it's come up in more of a framing statement about the purpose of the outcome of the assignment. So you've got that statement there. It's editable at any time. You could double click in here, and you've got this editor where you can edit right here, or you can go on to the next and you can edit later. And I'll show you where that is briefly. How many groups? Each group will have 4 members. That's a pretty straightforward statement. Group selection. So there's a process here about group selection. And again, you can decide as an instructor, are you going to use Canvas, let's say, to do randomization of assigning students? So you still have control over that, but you want to give students a little bit of information about what's happening. And then here from a simple statement that was provided, here's now an example of a group charter. Now, this will take you a good while to develop something like this from scratch. So again, AI has proposed, based on the context of the assignment and what you've told me, here's an example of a group charter. And we've got a link to research about using group charters and from the Derek Bach Center at Harvard, et cetera. But you can see that example. I could edit it here, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to the, there's a submissions section, so it gives them information about what they're submitting. And then I'm going to go to grading. You can see these shortcut bullets on the left for the different elements of this resource. So here's information about grading. I know I'm going very quickly. I just want to give you an example of how quickly this does develop. And again, you can edit within this final mode here, and then you can go to the complete function here. And now this is where you would get the resource that you could view again if you wanted to, or you could edit, or you could download. You could also up here share with a colleague as well. So somebody maybe it's teaching a different section of the same course, or you're co-instructing on a course. So that's one example. I'll go back to the portfolio and I'll be quick on create a grading rubric. This is something that's a powerful tool for transparency and assessment and feedback, but I think is still underutilized because it's complex and takes time to develop a good rubric. And I know time can be a barrier. So we're trying to remove that barrier by, again, applying a little bit of Gen AI and some learning science in the background to our prompting. And let's say that this is going to be a presentation assignment, 25 points. I'm going to click next. Let's say that it's going to contain content, research support, and presentation skills. And by presentation skills, I mean that they've internalized it. They're not just reading what AI has generated or quoting verbatim. So here it gives a definition of each criterion. And again, you can edit those or accept them. I'm just going to move forward. And then now if I'm looking at how the 25 points will be broken up, I'm going to say 40, 40, and then if I tab, I go to 20, and it does a little math checker. It makes it sure that adds up to 100%. And I go to next, and I can have the different levels for those criteria. And I'm just going to select 3. That's usually a good number. And then now it's breaking down for content. Here are descriptions for each of those criterion and their respective levels within. Because again, doing all of that on your own would take a lot of time. You can finesse this and make it the exact wording that you want to pretty quickly. So it's developed a lot of information for you just in a matter of moments here. And now you would be able to, again, give it a final pass and see it all in one view. And you could decide to go ahead and say complete. And again, that's where you could download and share. And we always put rationale, the learning science behind this, the research behind this, and we give citations and a little bit of summary about why using rubrics is a good practice. So we have that for all of our resources. So I'm going to go back to our slide here briefly. And what we'd like to do is go ahead and share with you today what we call freemium access to Curie, our platform, and how you would be able to access some of these optimizers and use them for your own purposes. So we've got the QR code, and we should have the link going into the chat here. I'm sure that's happening. Yes, we've got that. And so I know we're at our last minute or so, so I'm going to just let everybody rely on the link in the chat if you didn't get the QR code. And again, we'll send this in follow-up. And I'm going to go to what's coming next is you can also access our prompt resource where we have these 7 sections that you can see on the first thumbnail of categories of prompts. And then within each of those categories, you've got multiple prompts that you can adapt or adopt that are ready to go for your context, for your course, for your assignments. So that link is in chat. You can access that. It'll be coming with the recording as well and the resources. This is our playlist of all of our webinars that we've had to date, and we'll have today's posted typically by Monday. We've got everything packaged and posted and distributed to everybody. And then this is announcing our next webinar, which we're going to do on April 25th, So today I gave you a peek at our platform, and in our next webinar, we're going to be able to go deeper into all of the different ways that we're using that currently with institutions, and then what we have planned going forward. So I know you've got the link in there. That's the 25th at the same time. And I'm going to go ahead and get us to this last slide here and pause. I want to say thank you to Michelle again for your presentation, the work you've put in, the work you've been doing, and the sharing that you've been doing just largely across the greater community and being with us today. And thank you everybody for all
Thank
of
you
your
so
comments.
much.
Thank you.